Growing up in India, you are made to believe that because you were born in India, you actually were born with a lot of disadvantages. I mean, sure, having an Indian passport makes everything a lot more difficult, but you have to remember that just because you were born in India, you actually have a lot more advantages that many people who grew up in different countries don't have. And the number one advantage of that is knowing English, and knowing English to a fluency level that you're able to go almost to any part in the world and you're able to speak language there properly, you're able to work there without any kind of problems. And this is very important because if you take a look at any other people from European countries, most of the times the English proficiency, that is not so great. So there you definitely have an advantage. And if your English is not yet good, make sure you work on it, because that's definitely going to make your life a little bit easier. Second, now because we have seen things which were a little bit more difficult, for example, many of us have our stories from our student hostels, and we know the stories of 4 or 5 people just lying in the same room, chilling out, like very little hygiene and things like that in the toilets and things like that. I mean, this was all a very painful experience, and all of us very clearly remember that. But this also makes sure that when you come abroad, when you see more places, when you actually start studying, do whatever you want, you will be appreciating those things a lot more. At the same time, if you also think about it, for example, if you are now, for example, working in some kind of new company or something, you have found a job in any of the other European countries, Germany, whatever, now you also see that you have a work-life balance. That means if you were previously seeing that there was actually a lot more work pressure, and when you come to this environment where you're having a nice balance, you appreciate it a little bit more than other people. So I think it is important to remember that yes, we have some disadvantages because our passport makes things a little bit more difficult, but most of the Indians, you guys are smart people, we all are smart people, and if you just put some hard work inside, things can become so much better for you and you can make so much more out of your life, right? Just don't get into this victim mindset that just because this and this, just because I grew up here, just because I have this passport, just because this and that, I cannot do X, Y, Z. That's stupid. That's not the mindset you should have. As Indians, we do have a lot of advantages. We do have a lot of positives that we actually grew up with because of the kind of upbringing we had. One very important advice that I can give you is that you should really need to kill this spoon-feeding culture. This is really destroying your character building. You are not able to build any kind of personality just because you're waiting for somebody else to come and feed you the information. Just because you're waiting for somebody else to come and file your paperwork, things like that. This is stupid. If you grew up in the West, you know that most of the things you have to do on your own. And this is one mindset that we have to essentially learn to make things a little bit better for ourselves, because when I see in the West, most of the people, they grew up very independently. That means when they're 18 years old, even 16-year-old, they already have to find out a way to feed themselves. They already have to find out a way to do their own things. But in India, even like, you're 24, 25. Recently, I had a call with somebody who was 27-year-old, and he was sitting with his mother together in the call because he wanted to discuss how does he study his masters abroad or something. This is the one thing that you have to really stop. The over-dependence on your parents, just letting your parents doing everything, or just letting somebody else spoon-feed you and constantly saying, all right, like I have to speak to my parents, I have to speak to them and so on. You're a grown adult, right? You have to make mistakes. If you don't make mistakes, you will never learn what was the right choice that you could have made previously. That's how everybody grows, and that is also how you should be taking things forward.